I've talked a lot about Zutara on this channel. It is a very popular pairing among fans, and for good reason. Zuko and Katara grow to understand each other and care about each other and empathize with each other. It is hard to understand Katara's story without understanding her interactions with Zuko. When Zuko joins Team Avatar, Katara is the only one who isn't readily willing to accept him. Not after what he did to her in Ba Sing Se. When he asks her, "Why don't you trust me?" she responds, "I was the first one to trust you." And look where that got her. Got her a knife in the back. But he earns her forgiveness by giving her closure on her mother's death, and by forgiving him, as well as by not killing the man who killed her mother, Katara defeats her dark side. She demonstrates that she can be passionately and relentlessly and steadfastly moral without lapsing into more extremist impulses. And while you could discuss Zuko's story without discussing his relationship with Katara, to do so would be rather incomplete. While both his uncle and Aang were willing to forgive Zuko, so long as they believed that he was looking toward the light and trying to move past his worst impulses, Katara is different. They met in the apex of Zuko's push toward change in the back half of Season 2. Zuko's betrayal hurts so much because he convinces her that he can change, that he has changed, that he's no longer possessed by the same drive to gain his father's approval that once possessed him. Because of how visceral this betrayal is, his final challenge in Avatar, in terms of his character, is to convince Katara to accept him. It's not really his final defeat of Azula. That's a big moment politically and sociologically, but Zuko has already completed his march toward redemption before this by convincing Katara to accept him. It's a great pairing, and there have been a lot of really wonderful analyses of it. But what has not been analyzed to nearly the same extent is how this pairing would affect Aang, the show's protagonist. A significant amount of the backlash I've seen against this pairing has less to do with its merit in of itself, and more to do with the compassion a lot of fans have toward Aang as a character. They want him to have what he wants. They want him to be with the one he loves. This is completely understandable, though I disagree considering that we don't really get an insight as to Katara's views on the topic. And there's no real indication of why she wants Aang and why she wants to be in a relationship with him, other than the fact that the world of the show revolves around Aang for the most part. Zuko a little bit, but mostly Aang, and it does not really revolve around Katara. We get to see inside her, into her fears and passions and desires at some points, but in terms of her romantic affections, the show is rather opaque as to why she thinks what she thinks. But what if Aang fails? What if he saves the world and brings peace, and he goes in for the final kiss with Katara, only for her to reveal to him that she has chosen Zuko instead? He'd be confused and frustrated. We can empathize with that. What direction he goes in after this point would say a lot about his psychological and emotional state. Could Aang go on a dark path if he does not end up with the one he loves? It's certainly possible. But I really hope not. Aang may not be as distinctive and memorable of a character as Zuko or even Katara or Iroh, but he's still a kind and intelligent and caring kid. I'd hate to see him go down a dark path, but I don't think it's completely unreasonable to believe that it's a possibility. The sheer extent to which he believes that he'll be in a relationship with Katara is disquieting. is this certitude that's a bit disturbing. Just because he loves Katara, he thinks that he's guaranteed to be in a relationship with her somewhere down the line, and that's a little strange. Actually, it's not strange, it's typical, but it's the kind of typical that you should be able to transcend with time as you grow up, but there's no indication that Aang really ever abandoned his idealized, narrow view of his relationship with Katara. He falls in love with her as soon as he sees her, and this obsession never fades. It's less like he's in love with her, and more like he's in love with an image of her. He doesn't even really know her at this point. And though he does grow to gradually understand her more as the show progresses, he rejects her actions whenever they conflict with his image of her. The best example of this is in episode 316, The Southern Raiders, when Katara decides to go after the man who killed her mother. Aang is not only angry, but confused, as though he can't comprehend her acting in a way that so viscerally goes against his myopic, shallow view of her. He struggles to fit these deep, raw emotions she's expressing into his worldview. That so many people in the show, from the fortune teller in The Fortune Teller to the prisoners in episode 205, Avatar Day, to Avatar Roku himself in episode 306, The Avatar and the Fire Lord, that all these people support the belief that Aang will be with Katara in the future if he just tries hard enough and believes in his convictions hard enough. You can definitely see how this inflates this view in him, how this makes him believe that, yeah, okay, if I just keep trying, I'll succeed. Try again, you know? Just keep forging ahead on this path toward Katara, and I'll eventually reach this goal. I'll eventually be with her. It's not entirely his fault that he thinks this way, but it is kind of a problem. If Katara rejected him, he would have to step back and self-reflect, and this is not something he's really accustomed to doing. True, he does do it on several occasions, most notably in episode 113, The Storm, when he decides that he was wrong to run away, and that he needs to step up and take on the duties of being the Avatar, and in episode 313, The Firebending Masters, wherein he decides that he was wrong about firebending, that it is not innately bad, or dangerous, or chaotic, and that he shouldn't be afraid of it. There are a few more times where he admits that he was wrong, such as in episode 117, The Northern Air Temple, where he allows Teo and the Mechanist and their people to live in the Northern Air Temple after getting so angry before that they were living there. However, it's more common to see Aang react rashly and angrily when things don't go his way and he's forced to take a step back. Think of how he's so miserable at the thought of his failure at the start of Season 3 that he risks the plan Team Avatar has spent a long time creating, this invasion plan. Everything has been set up by Sokka and the rest. It's all perfect. At least, they think so. They don't know that Azula knows. But if Azula did not know this plan would be airtight, and yet Aang threatens to disrupt it just because he's so angry at himself for allowing the Fire Nation to take the Earth Kingdom. His anger comes from a real place, but he directs it in such a way that threatens to compromise the integrity of their mission. He decides to go it alone, and he nearly gets himself killed. While Aang's strategy to defeat the Fire Lord without killing him proves sound, his belief that the other members of Team Avatar are flat-out monsters, just for suggesting that, hey, maybe there are more important things than your personal beliefs about nonviolence here. The fate of the world is at stake, Aang. Reveals a deep sense of insecurity on Aang's part. He just wants everything to go his way. He has a hard time disagreeing with people without devolving into yelling and screaming and getting so defensive. This is particularly evident pertaining to his feelings for Katara. Aang storms out of a silly Fire Nation play in episode 317, The Ember Island Players, just because the play ships Zuko and Katara. When Katara suggests that maybe he's overreacting a little bit, Aang responds by saying that he would probably be in the Avatar state right now, were his chakras not blocked. Now, what this implies is that the idea of Katara not returning his affections is as offensive to his very being as the idea of the Sandbenders muzzling Appa or the Fire Nation killing his people. He does not usually go into the Avatar state unless he is in times of huge emotional and psychological stress. Does this seem like a kid who would handle rejection maturely? What would he do to Katara? What would he do to Zuko? Now, I doubt Aang, a pacifist, would intentionally incite violence, but when he's in the Avatar state, he pretty much loses control of himself. And even when Aang settles down to the extent that thinking of Zuko and Katara together does not force him to enter the Avatar state, I do not think he will be able to handle this rejection well at first. It does not fit with his conception of the world. He would not remain so optimistic. The fantasy of Aang is not just the fantasy of being the chosen one and having elemental powers. It is the fantasy of consistently being proven right. He's right about Zuko. He's right about being able to win the war without murdering Ozai. Though he feels a profound sense of guilt for allowing Appa to be captured and for allowing Ba Sing Se to fall, the sources of this guilt do not last, as he later reunites with Appa and the Earth Kingdom later takes back Ba Sing Se. This is not to say that he's always right or that he doesn't suffer loss, but he's never really been in the position of wanting something so badly and deeply that it defines him as a character and then not getting it. Not getting the girl, as it were, would disrupt his idealistic fantasies about the world and about Katara as a person. He would, I believe, finally accept this pairing, but not without suffering revulsion and disillusionment. Aang is not a bad person. He's a good person, a genuinely good person, but he's also a child, and he acts like one. At the start of the show, he is 12 years old, and considering that the show, by my estimations, starts in late autumn and ends in late summer, he could not possibly be more than 13 by the show's end. What does he know of love or healthy relationships? He would not accept defeat, not at first. He would compete for Katara's affections even after she had already made her choice. Katara is her own person with her own wants and needs that do not necessarily fit with the wants and needs he ascribes to her. Just because he saves the world does not necessarily mean his beloved will return his affections, nor should it. These are things he will learn with time. Maybe he'll stay close friends with Katara and Zuko. Maybe he'll fall in love with one of the many fangirls he has in the comic books. Maybe he'll accept that he was more than a little unfair to Katara, expecting her to love him just because he loved her. But he would have to go through a difficult learning process. He would have to suffer through a lot of heartbreak first, so committed is he to the pursuit of Katara. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Avatar The Last Airbender. It is a challenging, thoughtful, empathetic show that I'm so thrilled is finally getting the attention it deserves. Truly a beautiful masterpiece. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.